Inside the Magic, show number 361 for March 4th, 2012. It is Sunday, March 4th, 2012, and this is show 361 of Inside the Magic. And as always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti. We do have another great show packed with plenty of Disney and theme park news and a whole lot more fun. And before we get to all of that, I do invite you to visit InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and so much more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, anything else you want to tell me, you can always write to me at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net. And, of course, you can call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. The Disney Cruise Line is closer than ever with sailings from New York, Galveston, Orlando, and Los Angeles. Book your Disney cruise vacation today for the best pricing, and you can receive free shipboard credit. You can do all that by calling Magical Travel at 866-207-8387, or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote. And be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And thanks very much to listeners and viewers like you and like Mike Zaleski for your donation this week, and everybody who's a recurring monthly donation subscriber, and anyone who clicks through the affiliate links. And of course, let me put in a note about Audible as well that I mentioned last week. Audible has now switched to 30-day trials, which you can get over at audibletrial.com/InsideTheMagic, so you can enjoy over 85,000 audiobooks to choose from with a free trial by signing up there. So now, let's get started with this week's show with our trip around the world. So it has been an extremely busy week this week. Lots and lots of news, lots to cover, lots of special events, and you know, even outside of the special events, just a lot of little stories here and there. So I don't want to delay much here. Let's just jump right into the first story of the week, which is actually events taking place outside of Disney's theme parks, though it should be something that D23 members all over the country can look forward to. D23 this week announced their upcoming Fanniversary events, the details for those events, because I think it was back in November is when D23 first said they were going to hold these Fanniversary events around the country, but then they didn't say any more as to what exactly would be included in these events, and I've gotten a lot of emails from people saying, hey, what's going to be part of these? Well, now we know, so let's get into that. They're going to take place in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Boston, New York City, Orlando, and Chicago. So LA and Orlando, usually a lot of Disney stuff there, but the other four cities, good to see Disney bring in some events outside of there. It's going to be the same show that D23 is going to put on in all of the different cities, beginning on select dates, starting on April 27th. But there will be different presenters throughout all of the different cities. They're going to be hosted by a Disney archivist and a D23 team member. And there will be behind-the-scenes stories. Topics will include classic Disney movies, characters, Disney park attractions. There will be film footage, concept art, photography, interviews with Disney legends. All of that's going to be included. Actually, D23 put out a more specific list of topics that were part of it, or will be part of these Fanniversary events. It's going to include talking about Star Tours, Epcot's grand opening, Pirates of the Caribbean, Mickey Mouse cartoons, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Goofy's first ever on-screen appearance, the original Tron, Pete's Dragon, Main Street Electrical Parade, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and even more than that. So a wide variety of topics. Tickets are going to be available for D23 members beginning a couple of weeks from now, March 16th, actually a little bit less than a couple of weeks, at 10 a.m. Pacific time on the D23 website. And then following the D23 ticket sales, then general admission tickets for non-members will be made available, whatever's left, on March 30th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Tickets are going to be $18 for D23 members and guests, and $25 for general admission. And to talk more specifically about the dates that each of the cities is going to be in. Los Angeles is going to be the first one. It's actually going to take place at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California, so a great place to hold an event like this. There will be a 5:30 p.m. one and an 8 p.m. one, and that'll be on Friday, April 27th. Then it's jumping to the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco the following day, April 28th at 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. On May 20th, a month later or so, in Boston at the Museum of Fine Arts at 2 p.m. New York City on May 22nd at the Cherry Lane Theater at 5:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. Then down here to Orlando on June 23rd, quite a while from now, at Disney's Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World at 11 a.m. And then it'll wrap up in Chicago on June 24th at the Museum of Contemporary Art at 5:30 p.m. So pretty exciting. Good to hear that Disney and D23 are making good on their promise to bring more special events around the country. It is, of course, in just a few select cities, but I definitely will see if I can go to the Orlando one. We'll certainly send somebody out to the LA one, the first one, and tell you what it's all about. And tickets just about 12 days from now for D23 members. So stay on top of that. Of course, tickets will be available on the D23 website. So now let's move to Disneyland, actually, is where we'll start the park coverage this week, where Disney this week released a little bit of behind-the-scenes video as to what's going on in the ongoing refurbishment over at the Matterhorn bobsleds attraction. It's been closed for a few weeks now, part of a 6-month-long refurbishment. It'll be reopening this summer, and Disney was offering an inside look as to what's going on inside the mountain that's almost completely wrapped in scaffolding at this point. Of course, they're replacing the old sit in each other's lap vehicles with individual seat ride vehicles that now have safety bars instead of seat belts as well. There's going to be a new station for single riders and those needing special assistance. But the most important detail that came out from the behind-the-scenes look Disney release was indeed a date. June 15th is when Matterhorn bobsleds are going to reopen at Disneyland. And what's interesting about that particular date is the fact that that is the same rumored date that Cars Land may be opening at Disney California Adventure. Of course, Disney hasn't actually said the opening date yet, or hasn't announced it yet, but the fact that the Matterhorn bobsleds will be reopening June 15th certainly increases the likelihood of that rumored date. Of course, we'll keep you updated as soon as we know exactly when Cars Land will be opening. Speaking of Cars Land and the ongoing changes over at Disney California Adventure, this week Disney put a time capsule in the ground in the park. It's something new for Buena Vista Plaza, that they're burying some specific items that are related to the present day of Disneyland Resort and California Adventure specifically. They have put it in this time capsule in the ground, and it's to be opened in 25 years. By Disneyland Resort cast members in 2037, and the items are just a bizarre variety of random, we got park maps and newspapers, and I think there's a Duffy the Disney Bear plush in there, and a bunch of things that in 25 years, 25 years is not that long of a time for a time capsule, but it'll be amusing when that time comes to see the cast members open that up and take a look at what was on the minds of everybody in 2012. Of course, who knows if we'll be around 25 years from now, but if I'm still doing this podcast then, which that's a long time to think about, I will surely cover the opening of it. But that's a very long time from now. Sticking with the topic of Cars Land here, we've been hearing about the food that will be part of Cars Land for such a very long time. I mean, it's been years that Disney has been talking about Cars Land in general, and finally this week Disney gave an actual look at what some of the food will look like in Cars Land, and it actually looks very good. Starting with Flo's V8 Cafe, they're going to offer some breakfast dishes like a chicken tamale with scrambled eggs, salsa verde with pico de gallo, and a brioche French toast served with salted caramel and bananas. But for lunch, they'll have a veggie tater casserole with roasted veggies, bulgur wheat, boca crumbles, and smashed red skin potatoes topped with melted cheddar. All sounds very yummy there. But what Flo's V8 Cafe is really going to be known for are their pies, sweet pies, dessert pies. And the one that Disney was showing off was an apple, cheddar, and cherry pie. Or I don't know if those are three separate things, if that's all one thing. I don't know. Maybe it's apple cheddar and cherry as separate ones. Regardless, it's pie, and it sounds good. But the one that we've really, really heard a lot about is the Cozy Cone Motel, and all of the various puns that they've gone over the years, where they're going to work the word cone into a variety of foods. And the one that everybody has certainly heard about plenty is the chili cone carne, and Disney revealed a look as to what that is, and it's somebody when I posted this on Facebook a few days ago, somebody likened it to the old handwiches that Disney had a big fuss about back in the 1980s. It's kind of this wrapped cone of, I don't know, it's not really tortilla, I don't know if it's some sort of bread, but it's sort of this cone filled with chili and some Fritos and cheese on top, and it looks surprisingly good. Now, whether it's actually going to look like the picture Disney released when you get it in the park, or if it's just going to be overflowing and dripping with chili, who knows? But in addition to that, there will be many more pun-tastic foods like cone on the cob, etc., etc. So certainly lots to eat when Cars Land opens this summer. And sticking with Disney California Adventure, this bit of news surprised me this week, despite the fact that Electronica, one of my favorite things over at California Adventure, is going to be closing soon-ish, sometime within the next month or two. Electronica will be no more to make way for the Mad Tea Party, but despite that closing on the way, they are actually still adding things to Electronica. And this week, Disney was showing off that they have added a disc-throwing competition where you have these sort of lit-up, obviously Tron-like things that you can throw discs through, and if you win, you get to take home a disc with you. And in addition, they've also set up what they're calling a Tron cam on the dance grid, where as you're dancing around to the DJ music, they'll have sort of multicolored, crazy renditions and live video of people dancing, being plastered up on Tron City, as they put it, really, on the Monsters, Inc. ride facade. Certainly looks like a fun addition to Electronica. I find it puzzling that they're still adding things to Electronica when it's going to be going away very soon, but I'm all for it. Maybe by some freak of nature it will stick around, but I highly, highly doubt it. It seems like the Mad Tea Party is indeed on the way in a few months. Some craziness happened at Disneyland Resort just yesterday morning, a Saturday morning. Disneyland Resort was basically on lockdown as a result of a suspicious object that was found shortly after 7 in the morning. Only a handful of people had made it into the park during some early hours. So at that point, Disney was not letting anybody in or out of the parks. Anybody who was in there basically got the parks to themselves, and everybody else, there were just hundreds and hundreds of people piling up in downtown Disney waiting to get into either park because at the time everybody thought it was a bomb scare. It ended up being very harmless. It was about 10:30 a.m. that it was deemed to no longer be a threat, and it ended up being some kind of religious message, a scroll of goodwill or something like that. Something very, very harmless, but it was essentially shut down the Disneyland Resort for a few hours in the morning. Disneyland Resort spokeswoman Susie Brown said, quote, "As a thank you to our guests for their patience this morning, Disneyland Resort park hours have been extended tonight," referring to Saturday night, of course. She continued, "Disneyland Park will now close at 1 a.m. and Disney California Adventure Park will close at 10 p.m. Also, an additional World of Color show at Disney California Adventure has been added at 10:15, and an additional Fantasmic show at Disneyland added at 11 p.m., end quote. So Disney did make a good effort to make everybody happy afterwards, after the commotion of the morning. And fortunately, it was a harmless scare that all, resolved relatively quickly. But I'm sure it was a pain for anybody eager to get into the parks, just kind of standing around wondering what in the world was going on. And, of course, this week was one more Disney Day, the 24-hour day, both at Disneyland Resort, or at Disneyland Park, as well as out here at the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. I am going to be talking much more about one more Disney Day later in this week's show, but right here I want to mention that just before it happened, Disney released online at the Disney Parks blog a really excellent split-screen video they were calling A Tale of Two Parks, and it is something that every Disney park fan needs to go watch. If you have not seen this video yet, it is probably, in my opinion, the best video Disney Parks blog has put out yet. They basically took similar scenes from Disneyland Park and the Magic Kingdom, whether it's riding on the carousel or transportation up and down Main Street or various other activities, characters, etc., and matched them up left and right fairly seamlessly had things going from, I don't even want to describe it any further. Just go watch it. Head to the Disney Parks blog. It is one great video. Now, unfortunately, I do have some sad news jumping out here to Orlando now. The Flower and Garden Festival is coming up very soon over at Epcot, and a regular performer that was actually scheduled to play the festival once again in the Flower Power concert series this coming May passed away this week, unfortunately. Davy Jones, former monkey of the Monkees, died this week of a heart attack, only 66 years old. Very sudden, very, very sad. He was always so entertaining, extremely vivacious and full of energy and excitement, and always great to see at Epcot during that Flower Power concert series. He's lived here in Florida, not too far from Walt Disney World, maybe about an hour and a half away. And this is a vague Inside the Magic connection here. All the way back in show number 2 of Inside the Magic, that was many, many, many months ago, many years ago, in fact. The very, very first in-park recording that I ever featured on Inside the Magic was of Davy Jones playing at Epcot. It was a really horrible quality recording. I didn't have the right equipment at the time. Of course, I was just starting out to the podcast, and I don't recommend necessarily that you go back and listen to it because those early shows were terrible. But it's certainly worth mentioning here that that's how long, and even longer than that, Davy Jones has been around and performing at Epcot, and it's certainly a sad, sad thing that he died unexpectedly this week. So I know he had many, many fans all over. My wife is a huge fan of his, and it's definitely some sad news in the Disney community. So, moving on from there, let's actually switch gears out of Disney here for a few fun stories. Hopping over to Universal Orlando first, where a reopening date was announced this week for the upgraded and enhanced version of The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, the ride over Islands of Adventure. It's going to be opening just a few days from now on Thursday, and of course that ride's been around for a number of years now, always a very, very popular ride. I still love that ride. It was designed by many former Imagineers, and it's just a fun attraction that has now been upgraded with high-definition visuals, some new details and scenery and all kinds of stuff. Of course, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't say exactly what went into it, but there's some new 3D glasses as well to go with those new high-definition screens that they're calling Spider Vision, and should be pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that in just a few days. Also over at Universal Orlando, the Hollywood Drive-In miniature golf course right at the front of City Walk is basically open now. It hasn't had its official grand opening yet, but it's soft opened as of just a few days ago. Supposedly tomorrow, Monday, is the grand opening. I haven't really sort of gotten full official confirmation of that, but I'm definitely going to head over to the mini golf one way or the other very soon. A lot of people have played it so far, and it seems like it's a lot of fun. It certainly has a lot of great scenery all over there. And here's some interesting news that we'll chalk up as rumor at this point, though there's a lot of sort of hard facts that go along with this rumor. There was a filing that showed up online this week with the South Florida Water Management District from Universal Orlando and Universal Creative, showing some of what's going to happen to the land that was basically the former Jaws ride, which closed just a couple of months ago at Universal Orlando. And it was showing a lot of what's going to happen to the land, building it up and changing utilities and things like that. But there was also an overhead diagram of what the new buildings for that area are going to look like. Now, they weren't labeled as anything except something called Project 722. And through a whole bunch of connections and sleuthing online, many have connected this Project 722 to the expansion of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Now, that is not announced, it's not confirmed, that is the code name for this project, but it seems highly, highly likely that these buildings that showed up in this South Florida Water Management District filing will indeed be part of the next phase of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Again, not confirmed, not for sure, nothing set in stone there, but certainly highly, highly likely. If you want to read more about all of that, it's certainly interesting. Head on over to InsideTheMagic.net, where I have more details as to why this is likely part of the Wizarding World. One more Universal-related story here. Anybody who is a fan of butterbeer over at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. If you're over in London, you now have a chance to drink the official butterbeer drink there as well, or rather very soon. The Warner Brothers Studio Tour in London will be the second place on the planet to officially serve this amazingly tasty butterbeer drink. That's going to be opening up on March 31st. Again, it's in London, and it's going to feature the original Harry Potter sets from the films, many of them, the ones that are still standing. So definitely, worth checking out if you are not in the United States, but rather in England. All right, let's move away from Universal for one quick story from Busch Gardens, Tampa. Kind of some surprising news this week. A new special event is coming up for the holiday season way at the end of this year, many months from now, but Busch Gardens announced it now as Christmas Town is the name of it. It's going to be a separately ticketed event after regular park hours every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from November 30th through December 23rd. It's going to have entertainment, live music, food, shopping, lots and lots of Christmas lights and all that good stuff for the holidays, but, that's many, many months from now. So we'll have more on that come November or so. Back to the world of Disney now, where we're going to move to television news, where Disney XD has announced this week a new television series called Pac-Man, The Adventures Begins. That's right, the Pac-Man, the little yellow guy that gobbles up little bits and gets chased by ghosts and chases ghosts and all of that kind of thing. He's getting yet another variation of a television show, but it's going to be a Disney show this time. It's going to be 3D in so much, not actual 3D, I don't think, but like CG 3D sort of thing. Anyway, it's not debuting for a while. It's going to be fall of 2013. And of course, last week, turning to movies now, last week was the Academy Awards, the Oscars, and The Muppets won Best Song for Man or Muppet. So big congratulations for that. And hot on the heels, there is talk of a Muppets movie sequel. Although many are saying that Jason Segel will not be writing the next Muppet movie. Of course, he wrote and starred in the previous one, or at least co-wrote. Director James Bateman, yeah, I can't read. Anyway, co-writer Nicholas Stoller will be on board, but Segel apparently is a bit too busy with many other projects in order to be attached directly to writing this one. However, it is said that he could still star in the film. It's undecided at this point. For me, I wouldn't miss him, really. He certainly did a good job with this film. It was certainly very, very enjoyable, but I think it could have been even better because I wasn't really a fan of his acting particularly. I think that was probably the low point in the whole thing. But anyway, that is The Muppets. Seems like a sequel is highly likely. And last bit of news for the moment this week. Production has begun in New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado for Disney's next big blockbuster film, The Lone Ranger, from director Gore Verbinski and Jerry Bruckheimer, of course, who previously paired up on the Pirates of the Caribbean series. And Johnny Depp's involved as well, not as Jack Sparrow, of course, but as Tonto. And Armie Hammer from The Social Network and a number of other projects will be playing that title role of the Lone Ranger. That film is scheduled to open in theaters on May 31st of 2013, so still well over a year away, but it is going on. It is production has begun there. And that's it for news from around the world this week. And this week's tip is actually going to be a series of 3 weeks of Disney Cruise Line tips leading up to my upcoming preview trip on the Disney Fantasy, which we'll be talking about a little bit in just a minute. Jennifer from Michigan writes in and says, we saw so many families on board that had overpacked. The 3-day cruise is quite short, and many looked as if they had packed for a 12-day transatlantic cruise. So if you're going on a 3-day cruise, try to keep to either 1 or 2 large suitcases for a family, or use smaller ones. We saw a lot of about families struggling at the port at embarkation, and especially at debarkation with luggage, it's true that cruisers overpack. If you can take smaller roller bags, then you don't have to worry about putting them out the night before if you don't want to either. Jennifer, definitely an excellent tip there. I had my own luggage issues when I was on the Disney Dream last year and probably packed too much then as well. Certainly if you can avoid having Disney have to handle your luggage at all and, the whole, like you said, put them out the night before thing, it's definitely good to just kind of hang on to your own small luggage whenever possible, particularly on those shorter trips. Everyone else out there, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. And now I do want to talk a bit about the Disney Cruise Line because a lot of big Disney fantasy news was happening this week, beginning with the Disney Fantasy completing her transatlantic voyage from the Meyer Werft construction yard over in Europe and arriving in New York this week. She sailed through New York Harbor past the Statue of Liberty. Really great sight there. Of course, I wasn't there to see it personally, but I saw a lot of really great pictures, and everybody who was there, I got a lot of people twittering me and posting on Facebook and sending me emails who ran up to the rooftops of buildings and watched this new huge Disney Cruise Line ship sailing through New York Harbor, again passing Statue of Liberty and of course through right past all the big New York skyline, and of course arrived there just a few days ago in time for the evening of March 1st, which is when Disney Fantasy held its big christening. Now, the christening of the Disney Fantasy was not quite as large as the one that that Disney held last year for the Disney Dream cruise ship, which was certainly a much larger show. They had that at Port Canaveral, a big outdoor event with the ship in the background, and a huge, a cast of hundreds up on stage, and Jennifer Hudson sang. Now, that was a major event that we covered last year. This one was decidedly smaller than the Dream. It was actually held on board on the Disney Fantasy and included Neil Patrick Harris, Jerry Seinfeld, Nick Cannon, Heather Headley, and the Disney Fantasy godmother, or fairy godmother as they put it, was revealed to be Mariah Carey. Now, unlike the Disney Dream last year, I unfortunately was not in attendance. Of course, it was all the way up in New York, and I'm down here in Florida, but Disney did provide a few highlights of the christening show, which I want to share with you right now. It all began in the Walt Disney Theater.
Please welcome your host for the evening, star of film, television, and Broadway, Neil Patrick Harris.
Welcome to Disney Fantasy. I'm Neil. It's truly an honor for me to be here tonight. How amazing is this theater? Can you believe it? Dudes, we're on a ship. The ship is just incredible. I don't know, I just took a tour of it yesterday. I'm blown away. Never been on a cruise in my life. The staterooms, unbelievable. Well, mine's unbelievable. I don't know. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one, the only, Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh my God! I'm on a boat!
Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Seinfeld!
Who is here? Wait a minute, is that in the back? Wow, this is a big surprise. This is fantastic. Everyone, Mayor Michael Bloomberg is joining us. How are you, Mr. Mayor?
And congratulations to Disney. It is just a fantastic boat, and we're thrilled that they decided to christen it here.
Thank you very much. Neil. We really appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah. Take care.
Got no strings to hold me down, to make me fret or make me frown. I have strings, but now I'm free. There are no strings on me. That's the only way to know. I want the world to know. Nothing ever worries. I have strings. That's the only way to know.
That amazing company performs all three of those original musicals on every cruise, and as a fellow performer, my hat is off to them.
When you wish upon a star, your dreams
and the cast of the Walt Disney Theater.
So, as you heard, that was a bit abridged. As I just said a few moments ago, I was not actually at the christening in New York. Had I been, I could share with you the entire performance there that began the christening event in the Walt Disney Theater. Unfortunately, that was all that Disney released from that portion of the event, so clearly it had quite a bit cut out of it. But you got the general gist of what went on in there. The actual christening moment, however, Disney shared much more of it. It happened shortly thereafter, after that little bit in the Walt Disney Theater. It took place actually out in the main atrium area of the Disney Fantasy ship. It was, right along the big grand staircase next to a giant champagne bottle and the Minnie Mouse statue that is sort of the icon of the Disney Fantasy ship. In attendance were Disney CEO Bob Iger, Disney Parks and Resorts Chairman Tom Staggs, Mickey Mouse, of course, and the fairy godmother of the ship, which I mentioned earlier. So now I want to share the actual christening moment of the Disney Fantasy with you.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the christening of the fourth ship in the Disney Cruise Line, the magnificent Disney Fantasy. Obviously, this is a big moment for everyone at the Walt Disney Company, and we're especially pleased to be here tonight in this great city, New York, my hometown. We're incredibly proud of the fantasy, which builds on the creativity, innovation, and artistry, which are the hallmarks of not only the Walt Disney Cruise Line, but of the Walt Disney Company. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the fairy godmother of the Disney Fantasy, the incredible Mariah Carey.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you, Tom. I'm so excited to be here. Mickey, as always, fabulous ensemble. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to join this amazing celebration. It means a lot to me to be here to christen the Disney Fantasy tonight. Very excited. Right here live in New York City. Yes.
And now let's get to the moment you've all been waiting for. As you know, it is a long-standing maritime tradition to christen a ship with a bottle of champagne. And we have a very special bottle to do just that. And it's really smart of you, Mickey, to have your partner help with this ceremony, right? Minnie Mouse?
Oh, gosh. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, Mariah. Wish I could do that. I wish I could do that.
I didn't want Minnie to go out by herself, so I asked my hubby, my sweetheart, Nick Cannon, to be her escort. So they're up on deck right now.
Hi, honey. Hey, everybody. Well, we have our bottle of champagne, and we are ready to go, right, Minnie?
That's right, Nick. Oh, I'm so excited.
Me too, Minnie. Take it away, Mariah.
We're going to count down the big moment. Ready? Join us, everybody. Ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I christen the Disney Fantasy. May God bless this ship and all who sail on her.
Yeah.
And there you have it. That was the christening, more or less. Again, a bit abridged of the Disney Fantasy. Certainly more of a ceremonial event. Strangely enough, Mariah Carey in attendance, the fairy godmother of the ship. Didn't sing like Jennifer Hudson did last year. Would have been a treat, I'm sure, for all those who were there to to hear her there. But regardless, seems to have been a nice ceremony. And now the Disney Fantasy is on her way down here to Florida en route to Port Canaveral, ready for a few preview sailings. And then she will sail on her maiden voyage on March 31st out of Port Canaveral. Of course, as I have said quite a few times now, I will be on one of those preview cruises, and of course, we'll be coming back with plenty of coverage on the Disney Fantasy. Now, last year, when I talked about the Disney Dream, I talked seemingly endlessly about every tiny little aspect of the ship, and that was because I had never been on a Disney cruise before. I don't plan on going in the same direction this time around for the Disney Fantasy because there's so many similarities between the Fantasy and the Dream. They are sister ships, after all, very, very similar. So I'm going to focus largely in talking about it in a few weeks on what the differences are between the two. And then, of course, you can always go back and listen to a year ago in January of 2011 and listen to that show if you want to get to all the nitty-gritty details about the Disney Dream as well. But for now, that'll be it for Disney Cruise Line for this week until we get closer and closer to the big event in just a few weeks, which will be a sailing on the ship that I am most definitely looking forward to. And now, before we get to the next big feature here on this week's show, I do want to put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. If you have a business to promote, maybe a church or a school where you have to wear name tags around your neck, maybe even a convention you're going to be visiting, a great way to do all of that would be to wear custom lanyards around your neck. You can customize them with anything that you want on there, text, logos, colors, whatever it is. Head on over to lanyardlab.com to do all of that. Click on where it says get a quote. You can fill in all the details there, submit all your information to us. We'll prepare a digital proof showing you exactly what your lanyards will look like when they're produced, along with and email that to you along with a price quote for the whole thing. And if you're happy with it all from there, you can just order it online. And of course, if you have any changes, we'll make those for you as well. It is completely free to try and preview, so check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.com. And of course, the biggest event that happened this week was One More Disney Day at both Disneyland Park in California as well as the Magic Kingdom out here at Walt Disney World. It turned out to be one wild day at both parks, more so at Disneyland than at Walt Disney World, but certainly a lot of fun, really crazy event. I was at Walt Disney World for a good chunk of the day, and many, many people were at Disneyland for this special event. I had a really great time. Before we get into my, get into talking about my own personal experiences as part of One More Disney Day, I do want to talk a little bit about the Disneyland version of the event, which, of course, I was not there, but I did have a couple of people send me some reports as to what went on out in California. From what I gathered, the line to line up for One More Disney Day the night before, of course, it was opening at 6 a.m. That was the idea. It's going to be open 24 hours, Disneyland Park, from 6 a.m. February 29th through 6 a.m. March 1st. Disney decided that they were going to have 2,000 special Mickey ear hats. Those of you watching the video version of the show, you can see Gonzo here behind me wearing his Mickey ear hat there. Anyway, Disneyland was going to be giving away 2,000 of those to the first 2,000 to show up to the park. And they said you could not line up before 10 p.m. the night before. Well, that line the night before apparently stretched well past the entrance to Disneyland Park all the way out to Harbor Boulevard. If you're familiar with the Disneyland Resort, that is one heck of a long line, and it just kept building and building throughout the day. Once all of those people eventually got into the park, when it opened at 6 a.m., the crowds kept growing and growing. Of course, when locals got off of work, it was a work day, a school day, and when everybody got off from that, the nearby 5 highway was just jammed. The Disneyland Park eventually did fill to capacity. I think it was either last week or the week before, had a listener write in and ask, sort of trying to plan their time in going to One More Disney Day at Disneyland, and asked me if I thought it would be a bad idea to go over to California Adventure and try to come back. And I said, nah, it shouldn't be too bad. I don't think it'll fill to capacity. Well, clearly I was very wrong about that, because Disneyland did fill completely. They stopped admitting guests at some point. Eventually that relieved, and they started admitting people once again. But it was hugely, hugely crowded at that park. Of course, Disney doesn't reveal official attendance numbers, but some unofficial figures estimate close to 90,000 people coming and going through Disneyland at that point. Now, I do have a couple of first-hand reports. One from Jenny, who wrote in and said, "We ended up getting to Disneyland around 11 a.m. It felt like a normal weekend day, about a 6 out of 10 for the crowd level. It started getting crazy at about 8 p.m. It became so crowded on Main Street after the parade ended, they opened up the backside of Main Street to funnel people through. I heard they stopped letting people in around 11 p.m. I have never been in Disneyland when it was so crowded. Even though the crowd level was high, queues were bearable. About 4 a.m., we grabbed some food at the Jolly Holiday Bakery, and while in line, some cast members asked 3 people from our group if they'd like to be interviewed. They had been there since 6 a.m. They did, as enthusiastically as possible, answer questions about which attractions they went on first, what attraction was their favorite, Space Mountain in both cases. The cast members thanked us and gave us a $20 gift card for food." Nice perk there. Anyway, we ended the day on a vehicle-full ride on Indiana Jones, one of the best rides I've ever had. As we walked down Main Street, we high-fived every cast member. We saw and took pictures of clocks that read 6 a.m. The day ended perfectly with the Fab Five plus Chip and Dale waving goodbye in their PJs from the train station. I cannot wait to do this in 4 years. So it sounds like Jenny had a really excellent time. I also received an email from Faye, who sounds like wasn't there personally, but Faye said, "I didn't make it out, but several of my friends went to Disneyland for the 24-hour leap day. They arrived around 9:30 p.m. and said it took 2.5 hours to park." It's a long time. And that once they were inside, there were swarms of people. The viewing area for the 1 a.m. showing of Fantasmic had to be closed at 12:30 a.m. because of the crowds. That said, my friends told me that crowds or no crowds, it was incredibly magical. Everyone was cheering for the shows and so excited to be there that night that it was absolutely worth it. My friend said she is still in a jolly mood from the amazing experience. Well, you know, that is certainly good to hear. I got some messages on Twitter shortly after the whole thing was going on that were far less positive, that I'm not even going to share the details of here yet because they witnessed some entirely un-Disney and un-family-friendly activities going on all around in and around the parks, particularly in the people waiting for hours outside the turnstiles to get in. But ultimately, for those who did manage to get into Disneyland Park, it sounds like there was that sort of magic in the air and everybody had a good time. And that I can certainly relate to because out here at Walt Disney World, it had that same feeling. And now I'll talk a little bit about my personal experiences with One More Disney Day for the Magic Kingdom. Of course, just like at Disneyland, it was set to open at 6 a.m., which was 3 hours, difference between here and California. It was still 3 a.m. and people were waiting in line out there as it was all kicking off out here at Walt Disney World. And, it actually ended up being a bit of a calm morning. Disney had sort of give out the Mickey ears in a different way they did at Disneyland. They had a sign up a few weeks ago where annual pass holders could sign up to get 1,000 of those ears, and that is how they gave them out on the morning here. So a little bit of a different strategy and crowd control, if you will. Of course, in addition to handing out those Mickey ears, they were also handing out buttons that said One More Disney Day, and everybody gladly wore those Mickey ears and those buttons throughout the day, and there was plenty of T-shirts available. Everybody gathered in the first thing in the morning just inside the turnstiles at the Magic Kingdom in front of the train station. That's where everybody was being held there. There was a little platform set up for television cameras to get ready for the welcome ceremony that Disney would be putting on. Also showing up at the early morning hours. This was all before 6 a.m. This was maybe 5 to 5:30 in the morning. I think I got there at about 5:15 or so a.m. to the Magic Kingdom, and just a little bit before 6 a.m., Mickey and Minnie showed up dressed in their pajamas. Mickey was in green, and Minnie was in sort of purple and pink and hearts and all of that, and Mickey was clutching a Duffy the Disney Bear, of course, and they were doing a few television spots just before the morning happening took place. And Disney had promised a bit of a welcome ceremony to everybody who was going to be there for that morning event. And as it turned out, that welcome was more or less the usual sort of welcome ceremony that happens every day at the Magic Kingdom. It was unusual in the fact that they mentioned One More Disney Day, as well as it was in the dark. Normally when the Magic Kingdom opens, be it 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, it is light out. And so that was unique in this instance. And so I want to take you there right now. Let's go to the front of the train station at the Magic Kingdom for the welcome ceremony of One More Disney Day on February 29th, 2000.
Welcome to the Magic Kingdom. Welcome to the place where dreams come true. A timeless journey, the rise of fantasy. We've only a wish, create things like this to happen. The most magical place on earth is here.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Magic Kingdom, where today we celebrate One More Disney Day! 24 hours of magic, fun, and making memories. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Christopher George Weaver, the mayor of Main Street, USA. And it's time to gather around, everyone, because in just a few minutes, we're going to officially open the Magic Kingdom. But we can't do that until Mickey and all the gang arrive on the Walt Disney World steam train. They have been very busy getting the Magic Kingdom ready for a day full of memories. Greetings, everyone! Let's say hi to our guests.
Hi there, good to see you.
Let's welcome our new prince.
Hello, welcome.
And a very good morning from all of us here in the Magic Kingdom.
Good morning, good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good morning, something for sunshine. Good morning to you. When the band began to play, the stars were shining bright. Now the milkman's on his way. It's late to say goodnight. So good morning, rainbows are shining through. Good morning to you.
Now this is a very special morning indeed. You see, Mickey's invited the Torres family from Gainesville, Florida to ride with him on the train. Help us create some magic and open the park. Is everyone ready? We are so glad to see you. Get ready for a magical day. Hey, everybody, did you hear that? That is a Walt Disney World steam train. It must be coming down the bend. Oh, Mickey and the gang are going to be here any minute.
Coming down the track with a smoky stack. Hear it pumping, coming round the hill. Daisy's here to thrill every jack and jill.
Look, everyone, the steam train's arriving. Now we can open the Magic Hey, everybody, let's give Mickey the Torres family and all the gang a big hand.
Gosh, it's great to see you.
Oh, golly, it's good to see you too, Mickey. We thought you'd never get here. It certainly is good to see you, isn't it, everyone? So tell me, Mickey, are we ready to open the park?
Yep, we sure are. every game.
All right, let's get the Torres family here in the middle. Get some of that magic going and open the park. What do you think about that, Mickey?
Gosh, that's swell. Hi there. Thanks for helping us today.
All right, everybody, let's count down backwards from 10 and open the park.
Okay, gang. How nice and loud. Here we go. And 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Magic Kingdom,
That's everyone who's been part of our Disney family, and a special thanks to the Torres. Good job, guys. So long, everyone. See you inside, and let the memories begin.
Bye now, and have a Disneyland.
We now ask that you please walk slowly and safely to your destination and enjoy the rest of your day in the Magic Kingdom.
And there you have it, the opening of one more Disney Day at the Magic Kingdom, February 29th, 2011. That, what you just heard, or saw if you're watching the video version, took place at 6 in the morning, the beginning of 24 hours in the park. I noticed there was a good mixture of people who slept a bit before that 6 in the morning early time, and some people who just decided to stay up all night and brave it through. For me, it was just the beginning of a short morning, as it was, and I think this was the case with a lot of people as well. It was, of course, a weekday, and that meant I didn't really have a chance to, or the opportunity to stay there for the entire day, but I did stick around for, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half after that opening and saw some really, really unique sights that took place before the park normally would have been open. In that early morning time, as guests made their way down Main Street, USA, the first thing that everybody noticed, first thing I certainly noticed, was the fact that it was really foggy out. It was a bizarrely foggy, dense, thick fog throughout the morning, and it certainly made for some really amazing sights looking down Main Street, USA before sunrise, with Cinderella Castle lit up in the distance but barely visible. It was really a sight I had never seen in the park before. Certainly one that I am very, very glad that I got up early to see. And of course, I snapped all over, all over the hub and Main Street and around Cinderella Castle, trying to capture as much of that unique sight as I possibly could. It was an excellent photo opportunity. Truly a castle in the sky, basically looking like it was floating in clouds at that point. I was hoping for a really great sunrise coming up from behind Space Mountain and Tomorrowland, and working its way up over Cinderella Castle, but the fog really prevented a sunrise from being seen. But you know what? I would easily trade a sunrise for the pictures that I took of the fog, just making it was like a painting almost. Cinderella Castle just looked fantastic. I stood there literally near Cinderella Castle from that Kodak picture spot in Liberty Square. I just stood there for about 20 minutes, just watching everybody walking around, and it slowly getting lighter, and it just looked really fantastic. And after standing there for quite a while, I made my way over to the Haunted Mansion, of course, because what better place to be on a foggy morning than the Haunted Mansion, and that looked equally as spectacular. Of course, all around the park at this time, at this early hour, despite the fact that you just heard a lot of people sounding really excited in front of the train station, it was probably just maybe 200 or 300 people that showed up first thing in the morning. Certainly not the thousands that were there at Disneyland in the morning, so the park looked rather empty first thing when it opened at 6 a.m. A lot of the streets were just completely bare as you looked around. Maybe you'd see one or two people walking around. Certainly made for a great opportunity for everybody who wanted to get on some rides first thing in the morning. I was more interested in just kind of walking around and taking some pictures. They had a lot of transportation out on Main Street, USA, but only some of it was really being used. There was a horse and carriage just kind of sitting there, and everybody was really just taking pictures of it, myself included, rather than actually utilizing that transportation. Certainly a really interesting, unique, and fun morning, something that I doubt I'll ever quite see exactly the same way again. As I said, I left probably around 7:30 in the morning, and on my way out, the sun had essentially risen by that point, and I turned around to look at Cinderella Castle, only to notice that it was almost not even there. The lights had turned off on Cinderella Castle, the nighttime lights, and the fog was getting thicker, and just looking down Main Street, it was as if there was no castle at all. Just a really, really bizarre sight that I have never seen before. And of course, if you want to see pictures, for those of you not watching the video version of this, and if you want to see more and more photos, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net. I've got a full photo report there, or check our Flickr gallery where I've posted quite a lot of photos on there. The one thing that I did notice while walking around, though, a lot of the guests that were there were either in their own custom attire that they had brought with them to enjoy, or a lot of them had purchased the shirts that Disney had made available to commemorate the One More Disney Day event. So that was fun to see by the end of the day, so many people walking around all in the exact same clothing, really taking the opportunity to form one big bond and community between everybody who was there. So anyway, I left about 7:30 in the morning, came home, posted everything from the morning's activities, and then just kind of went to work for several hours. You know, I did my Lanyard Lab thing for the next several hours, went through a normal day, and it was a relatively normal day from what I heard for those who were in the park from that point forward. Normal park hours just kind of turned into a regular Magic Kingdom day. But then, as the work day ended, a lot of the locals, just like in California, a lot of the locals came out here in Orlando. Now, I didn't show up back to the park until after midnight, but during that sort of 6, 7, 8, 9 p.m. time frame, there was apparently a very long line of cars to park at the Magic Kingdom. The park was very, very crowded by 8 p.m. or so. It never did reach capacity out here at the Magic Kingdom, but definitely was extremely crowded, probably more so than a lot of people would have anticipated. Fortunately, a lot of that started to relieve after Disney ran the Main Street Electrical Parade at midnight. By the time I got there at about 12:30, it was still surprisingly crowded throughout the night. A lot more people than I thought were going to be there all the way until 6 a.m., but it was not horribly crowded. I mean, you could still go on attractions fairly quickly. But when I got into the park, what really surprised me the most, and some of the longest lines of the night, were for Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. As I said, I arrived back in the park at around 12:30 a.m. or so. At that point, there were about 5.5 hours left to be in the park, and the line for Sorcerers in the Magic Kingdom at that point extended well outside the firehouse, which is the distribution point for getting the cards that you pick up in order to play Sorcerers in the Magic Kingdom. You heard all about it on last week's show. The line out of the firehouse was 40, 50 people long, and it remained somewhere around there for hours and hours throughout the wee morning hours, and also at all the different magic portals around the park. There were lines just endlessly for all of those. Now, this is certainly an unusual night. A lot of locals came out, a lot of pass holders, a lot of hardcore Disney fans came out, and of course everybody was excited to try the Magic Kingdom's newest attraction. So, I suspect that's why Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom was excessively popular for this particular evening, but certainly was interesting to see everybody's excitement for that. As I walked down, actually also there in Town Square across from the firehouse, I noticed that the Town Square Theater, the wait time to meet Mickey Mouse in there was 60 to 90 minutes all night, which is way longer than it normally is, and that's because they were in their pajamas, and everybody wanted to have that rare opportunity to get that photo as well. So as I moved forward there down Main Street, USA, I noticed a lot of people had shown up. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but a good amount of people had shown up in their pajamas as well. Some were really decked out in matching pajamas and had Duffy the Disney Bears and other plush items carrying around with them. Some just sort of went half pajamas. I was going to wear my pajama bottoms to the park, but then I realized it didn't have any pockets. And of course, I go to the park carrying 8 million pieces of equipment and cameras and all that kind of stuff, so I ended up needing pockets, so I didn't go in my PJs, but it definitely was fun to see so many people dressed as such throughout the park. Then reaching the end of Main Street USA at 1 a.m. was the craziest sight, probably in the full 24 hours of the One More Disney Day event at the Magic Kingdom, and that was a huge, and I do emphasize huge, DJ dance party that was going on. The floats from Move It, Shake It, Celebrate It came out down Main Street USA right at 1 a.m. They parked around the hub, and that dance party went on until 5:30 in the morning or so. It was like a 4.5-hour constant dance party with literally hundreds and hundreds of people all dancing around the hub, and just, I mean, it looked like everybody was having a great time. I am not one to be dancing around and all of that. I, of course, as I said, I'm always carrying cameras and all that kind of thing. That's how I get a lot of my enjoyment of being in the park. So I was happily snapping away, taking video and pictures of everybody else dancing with characters. Donald Duck and Goofy and Pluto were there dancing around with also some of the cast members from the Move It, Shake It, Celebrate It street party, and everybody and some stilt walkers were mixed in with the crowd as well. And it, as I said, was just going on for a tremendous long time. And I did, as I said, take some video of that as well, which I want to share a bit of that just to give you an idea of what it was like to stand there in the hub in right in front of Cinderella Castle and sort of the sights and the sounds of this dance. So there you go, a bit of a sampling of what it was like to be standing there in front of Cinderella Castle during that massive dance party that went on throughout the evening at One More Disney Day. A mixture of Disney music and pop music and hip-hop music and Disney-fied Macarena and all that kind of stuff. Very, very high energy. I was actually amazed to see how much energy people had at, all the through 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. The dancing just seemed endless. And what I also noticed in watching the interactions between people who were there, there, of course, weren't a lot of young kids in the park during these late-night hours. It was a school night, and it was mostly, I saw a lot of people from all ages, starting in the 20s and upward, but around this dance party was a lot of teenagers and 20s and 30s, and a lot of cast members I noticed were off-duty cast members, that is, maybe had gotten off work from the day, maybe didn't have work for the day, maybe they took off. A lot of the on-duty cast members were greeting and friendly, hugging and laughing with off-duty cast members and friends who were there as well, and it just seemed like a big after-hours party for everybody to kind of celebrate their joint love of Disney together, and it was certainly a unique experience throughout the night. Elsewhere in the park, of course, there was much more going on besides this one big dance party. There were some special meet and greets set up. Winnie the Pooh were in front of Mad Tea Party, for instance. But one of the more special ones was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs were out in Fantasyland, which normally they're only available during the Christmas party, Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party or Not So Scary Halloween Party. So they were out taking pictures with guests, and our photographer, Michael Gavin, witnessed a wedding proposal, actually, out there in Fantasyland with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs on hand, which was a pretty cute moment. Certainly one that couple will remember for many, many years to come. And then shortly after wandering around a little bit there, it was time for our 2 a.m. Inside the Magic meetup in Liberty Square. We took a big group photo, which of course I've posted online. If you were there, please head on over to our Facebook page and tag yourself in that photo. I know most of you have already done that. It was 60-plus people showed up for this meet, which was kind of a last-minute planned meet, but it was great to see so many people show up for that. And I'll actually have more from that meetup a little bit later in this week's show after I finish talking about the rest of the night. So let's move on from there to, after the meetup was over, it was time for a ride on the TTA, which of course was a go-to spot for many throughout the evening to get some rest. That's, of course, when I go to the Magic Kingdom, that's where I often go to rest anyway, and to be there for so many hours and for late hours at that, sitting on the Tomorrowland Transit Authority and just kind of relaxing was definitely not uncommon throughout that evening. And as the night moved on, some other entertainment was available. I made it all the way back around to Main Street USA at about 5 in the morning, kind of at that point just waiting for it to all end at 6 a.m. And back in Town Square, they had a Goofy's Candy Company vehicle available for people to sit in and take pictures with. This is not something that they normally pull out for photo opportunities, so that was certainly a unique thing to do. And of course there was Town Square Theater still, even at 5 in the morning, had a very, very long wait. In fact, it was so long that they had to cut off the line. If anybody who wanted to see Mickey and Minnie in their pajamas inside Town Square Theater actually had to get in before about 4:45 in the morning, because the line grew so long that if they let anybody else in, then Mickey and Minnie would have had to stay there for even later than 6 a.m. I was actually told they were supposed to be done at 5 a.m., but so many people were in line and they wanted to get everybody through that they continued it from there. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go see Mickey and Minnie in Town Square Theater in their PJs, but I did see them in the morning about 24 hours prior to that, which was one of the most confusing things, was trying to figure out what day it was, what time it was. I was thinking, it was this morning that I was in the park for the welcome ceremony, and yet it was 24 hours prior almost, which was a very confusing thought. But anyway, elsewhere in the park, Chip and Dale were also there in their pajamas, dressed up, and Certainly, a lot to see and do. Not a whole lot of added entertainment. There was the dance party, there were meet and greets, and really that's about it for the additional entertainment aside from a few extra scheduled showings of regular daytime events. But everybody made the most of it. Certainly came prepared. I saw one guest who showed up not only wearing some Mickey ears but also a shirt that read "I've been awake for blank hours," and he kept flipping the day as the day went on. I caught him right toward the end of the day where it said 23 hours. I'm sure he made it to 24 shortly thereafter. That was around 5 a.m. at that point. So maybe about 5:20 or so, I started working my way back down Main Street in order to get near Cinderella Castle again. And at that point, I saw that the dance party was finally wrapping up, and the Stiltwalkers were making their way down Main Street, which was an unusual sight to see so many of them just kind of moving along there. And then at 5:30 a.m. was a special showing of The Magic, The Memories, and You, which was a great thing to see at 5:30 in the morning. There was this sort of faint orange glow from behind Cinderella Castle that really sort of enhanced the whole the projections that were on the castle, and really an enjoyable sight. Everybody was happy to see it at 5:30 in the morning, but was even happier when it ended, because that meant it was almost over and that 6 a.m. had nearly arrived. I was actually surprised to see, after Magic Memories and You had ended, how many people were turning around and leaving at that moment. A huge crowd of people right in front of me just did a 180 after watching the castle show and headed for the exit. And I thought, there's only about 20 minutes left until 6 a.m. I couldn't believe that people didn't want to stick around and wait out just that extra little bit of time. But I have a feeling everybody wanted to be first to the ferry boat or first to the monorail and beat that crowd. And so it was just like mass exodus at that point. And what was left over was, still a pretty good sized crowd, considerably less people, fewer people, but a pretty good sized crowd standing on Main Street, looking at the clocks, waiting for that 6 a.m. moment, and then it came, and nothing really happened, unfortunately. They didn't even make a park-wide announcement or anything, no countdown, nothing spectacular. It just kind of happened, it came, and it went, and everybody was, there was a little bit of a cheer at 6 a.m., sort of, everybody cheered unto themselves as they were watching their watches or looking at the park clocks, but it ended. Many had been there 24 hours. Many had come and go, as I did. A lot of people were stopping with the big clock on Main Street, USA, to pose with that clock. I did the same thing, and it was just kind of a sense of accomplishment, whether, it didn't even matter if you were there for the full 24 hours or whatever. If you stuck it out till that ending, that was certainly one of the most unique times to be there in the park, till 6 a.m. Magic Kingdom is often open till 3 a.m., for extra magic hour, so it's that 3 to 6 in the morning window that was extra special, and I think people really, guests really enjoyed being there. At the end of Main Street, there was a row of cast members high-fiving everybody, and Disney's cameras were there, of course, catching everybody on the way out, and everybody was in really, really good spirits. Yeah, there were a lot of tired people, but it was definitely a fun experience that was certainly unlike anything I had ever done in the Magic Kingdom before. Now, as I said, at 2 in the morning, I did have an Inside the Magic meetup. It was something that I probably should have scheduled a little bit sooner, but instead I kind of posted it online on Twitter and Facebook the day before, February 28th, and a good amount of people ended up showing up for the meet despite the short notice. It was, as I said earlier, it was about 60 plus. I can't remember the exact head count that ended up there. We all met in Liberty Square. Got in line. Well, we talked for a little bit. I passed out some Inside the Magic lanyards. I apologize for not having enough for everybody, but I tried to get to as many as I possibly could, and then I just simply ran out. I guess it's time for a new batch. But anyway, we, after chatting, went over to the Haunted Mansion, which was at I think a 35-minute wait at that point, which we immediately increased by adding a huge number of people to the queue. We went through the interactive queue. I rode with a couple of people who had been in the park since 6 a.m., and of course, I recorded the whole thing for your enjoyment. It is in binaural audio, so I do invite you to put on your headphones. Now, I'm not going to play everything. It ended up being about an hour-long meet from the beginning of the whole thing to the very end, getting off the Haunted Mansion. I did chop it down to just, some highlights of conversation and then a ride on the Haunted Mansion as well. For those of you watching the video version, this will start out with video from the meet, but I did not record the whole time, so at some point it's going to transition to just audio. And of course, for those of you listening to the audio version of this show, then it's just audio altogether. But it is binaural, so I do invite you to wear your headphones so you can feel like you're right there at the Haunted Mansion to enjoy the Inside the Magic meetup. And this will be the end of one more Disney Day conversation for this week's show. And then I'll be back after this meet to wrap it all up. So now let's hop on over to Liberty Square for our Inside the Magic meetup on technically began March 1st, 2012. Say hi, everyone. So I guess it's technically March 1st at this point. Those would be the Leap Day, One More Disney Day event. Thank you all for coming out to our fairly large Inside the Magic meet here. Something we don't do too often. It's been a very long time since we had one. Was anybody here for our last Haunted Mansion meet like years ago? Yep. 1, 2. Thanks for coming back. So clearly we're gonna go storm the mansion and work our way through the queue. I'll kind of walk through and of course I'm recording everything that's going on here. So as you chat, if you don't want to be recorded, don't say anything. And we'll just go. And I'm gonna need. What's that? Oh, good question. What time is it? It's 2:13 in the morning at the Magic Kingdom. An hour that is not all uncommon for the park, but in another hour or so it'll be certainly early morning hours. Anyway, I'm gonna need. Who here has been here since 6 in the morning? All right. And how many of you are still awake? Excellent. Well, I'm gonna need 2 people to ride with me, and I want it to be 2 people who have been here since 6 in the morning. So whoever wants to volunteer, go ahead. All right. Saw you, and your hand went up. So let's do you. You 2 can join me in the Doom Buggy, and we can chat about your adventures here at the Magic Kingdom. But in the meantime, everybody ready to ride? Yeah! Let's go. And I'm sorry, what was your name? Mitch. You're Mitch? Yep. What was your name? Megan. Mitch and Megan. Mitch, where are you from? Pennsylvania. Okay. Where are you from? Orlando. Orlando, so not far. I've been listening since 102, 103, and now we're on 360. And we're at a 35-minute wait for the mansion, which gives us plenty of time to chit-chat.
We're going to make the wait go to 45.
I know. Just our group alone will increase the wait. That's fine. The park's open till 6 a.m. It's only 2. That should be enough time.
I think the mansion's open till 4.
In fact, I'm going to stand here and watch everybody go by. I'll catch up with you.
When we saw it, the middle of the day was 120.
Hey!
So they're like...
When was that meet? 2008?
I have no idea. It was before that even. And we came to a screeching halt.
Are we going
All right.
to be interactive with you?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
It'll be more fun that way.
Have you been here since?
No, I was here for the first thing in the morning, and then I left at 7:30 and had a normal day. Showered, took a nap, came back about an hour and a half ago. So, yeah.
You really had enough.
Yes, I'm nice and refreshed and ready to. Wow. So you've been here since the beginning.
Yeah.
And how is that going for you?
It's going fine. It's actually better. I came by myself.
Okay, where are you from?
Syracuse, New York.
Okay, what's your name?
Roberta.
Excellent. And
Nobody wanted to come. Nobody wanted to do
so you
it.
said, hey, I'll just go by myself.
I figured I was turning 40 this year, so this is my gift to myself for my birthday.
Is today your birthday?
No, it's actually March 29th, so it's yesterday.
Okay.
40 and 30 days.
Well, happy birthday. That sounds like a good treat to yourself, definitely. So what have you seen today that surprised you, entertained you, was unusual, or is it just a long, normal day at the Magic Kingdom?
No, well, this morning I was actually really surprised. I thought it was going to be busier.
Right.
And I was able to get on everything.
Yeah, this morning, right after the welcome, the streets were practically empty.
Yeah, the unnormal was they chaoticness in getting a shirt. I thought it was like the
Merchandise is always insane.
I thought it was a day after Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's perfectly normal now. It's like, you should have just waited.
Right. I think it's in the Emporium, right? Yep. I was and they're selling them online as well. And then I read somebody say a little while ago that they were starting to sell out at Disneyland, but not here.
Yes, I did.
Disneyland reached capacity a little while ago, which this park most definitely has not.
There's a backup on I-5.
Yeah, it's been like that for a very long time. Yeah.
I didn't even know when this was going on. I was at work today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I happened to check the news because I live over in Tampa.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, really? So I was like, well, I get off at 9.
You had no idea this was going on.
No.
I watched it right at midnight on New Year's, waiting.
Yeah.
Waiting. Probably like, I don't know.
For the announcement, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course the announcement didn't come because your local news came out.
Right. Yeah, that was weird how they did that.
I'm like, you've got to be kidding. And everybody at the party's like, hi, gotta wait longer. I'm like, you gotta be quick.
Right.
So as soon as it was announced, my Disney bucket list was to be here at 4 a.m.
And here you are.
So eventually 4 a.m. will come and...
All right. I'm going to work my way through the line here, talk to a few more people as we all right, and then I will work my way back this way and talk to some more people like both of you. So tell me about your hand-painted, awesome Haunted Mansion shirts that you're
Well,
wearing.
it was Lisa's idea. She's a graphic designer.
Yeah.
So did you actually painted both of them?
I did, yes.
And are they washable or are they
No,
one
not
time?
at all.
Okay.
They're one time
So
only.
one time and then frame and put.
Maybe
Okay.
not frame because they're probably kind of smelly. No, the frame is good. It keeps.
Exactly. Yeah. Then don't hang it up because then.
No, exactly. And then we put on the back, but you can't see, but all the stuff we wanted to do today.
And did you? So you've been here since?
We got here on Saturday.
Well, today. You've been here since 6 in the morning.
We got here at 5:15.
Okay. So you saw the welcome out in the front.
Yes.
And then
Which
what?
was kind of anticlimactic.
It was the standard Magic Kingdom morning.
Exactly.
You know, it was nice to see it in the dark, I guess.
Yeah. I liked the pajamas of Mickey and Minnie.
Right. Which, when I came in about an hour ago, the wait to meet what?
Ricky!
Yes.
We are racing around the Magic Kingdom. We need to get on this ride as quick as... Okay, how many candles are in Madame Leota's stay on scene?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, come on, does anyone in the group know? Hi,
I-
Ricky. I love
I don't
the show,
know.
by the way. Hi.
Thank you.
I'm from 64.
Inside the Magic.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
You have no idea. There's no reason you know who I am. I'm
I
Abby,
don't.
by the way.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Hi, I'm Jana.
Hi.
From 64.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm Scott.
Nice to meet you. Hi. And you were doing this for touring plans. Okay.
Yeah.
So have you been doing just this park or all the parks
This
or
park.
this park?
Me and him have
And-
been in this park since 6 a.m. We
Right.
have not left once.
And you've done everything except
Pretty
for
much.
just about.
Well, now we're just playing a game.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna win.
Well, good luck.
Thank you so much, Ricky.
Yep, no problem.
We're just going to get in front of you. I hope that's okay. We're in group of 56, so technically if they were ahead of us,
Right.
it would have been fair.
So, since you've been here since 6 in the morning, have you seen anything particularly interesting, entertaining, exciting, unusual? So one more Disney day truly was just one more Disney day.
The characters were cool, like Captain Jack was out, and like the Seven Dwarfs, and that's different. We didn't go see them, but...
Right.
And King Rider was supposed to be out.
But he was not?
He was,
Oh,
starting
okay.
around 9 p.m. And before we came over here, we just walked by to see like how long the line
Right.
was. And we got to the end of it. There's a cast member at the end saying the line's closed.
Ah.
We're like, well, when does it end? And the people at the very end,
Yeah.
which it wasn't even that long.
Right.
The people at the very end of that line, we're gonna get in by 5:30 when the attraction.
Oh, wow.
I was like,
So are they
this is at 1:30.
Is it just a meet and greet, or are they doing the whole play and greet
They
thing?
must be doing the whole
Because
thing
that takes
the
more
line
time.
wasn't very
Yeah.
long.
That's interesting. Well, when I came in just now, that's what I was saying before craziness erupted. The line for Mickey at the front of the Park Town Square Theater with the pajamas and all that was an hour, which normally...
We did, it was like 10 minutes.
Yeah, so
Not
I think...
with pajamas. We did the normal.
Well, that's why. I think it's because everybody wants pajama Mickey and Minnie. I think Chip and Dale are supposed to be somewhere also.
We told by a cast member that Snow White with all 7 dwarves would appear, and they said that's very rare.
They're out for the Christmas party and Halloween party, but other than that, they don't all come out together. So
Cast members said they would be out.
they were out.
Just Snow White and Dopey, right? The rest of the dwarves aren't out.
Not normally, yeah. I mean, they're in the parade, but not normally part of the daily meet and greet.
This was really neat early this morning when it was still
Yes,
fog.
yeah. This morning the fog was tremendous.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see a beautiful sunrise over the castle, but the fog produced even better views. Yeah, I took a lot of pictures. I was over at the castle for a while, and then once I realized the sun was not going to be visible, I came over here and saw the foggy mansion, which was the best time to see it. So nothing particularly eventful today.
We had a lot of fun. But
Well, right, of course.
We tried to do sorcerers, but there were so many lines.
That is, yeah. I mean,
Most
even
of the people that are here today are either cast members, former cast members, annual pass holders,
Right.
or parents that are crazy. So everybody knows about it. Whereas if it
Right.
was just a normal day, most
right.
people wouldn't know
Well,
about it.
and it's it just officially debuted a few days ago, and it's probably the first opportunity a lot of people
Right.
have had to give it a
But
shot.
a lot of people were walking up to us and being like, "What are you waiting in line?" We're like, "Well, it's this thing. It's very
We're waiting to look at a window.
exactly."
Go through the interactive queue. I'm going to work my way back through the line, talk to a few more people. So how has your one more Disney day been?
Very, very long.
You've been here since 6
We got on the
a.m.?
road from Jacksonville at 3.
Oh, wow. So you just drove down. Did you get here by the welcome this morning?
We missed it by 15 minutes because of the fog.
Oh, okay. Well, you didn't miss a whole lot. I mean, it was just the normal sort of
I missed
morning.
The hat.
The ear hats.
The ears, yeah.
And have you seen anything particularly interesting since you've been here today? Or just a fun day?
It's just been a fun day more
Yeah.
than anything else. They really played it more low-key than I thought they were.
Right. It seems that at Disneyland they were doing a lot more special things. Special food and an extra showing of Fantasmic and a midnight free food meetup thing. And here it's more like, hey, just come enjoy the park.
Yeah, I forgot the guy's name. He told me. We met a guy about 2 hours ago that should be on a plane right now.
Heading out to
Opened up here
California.
and flew out. Apparently
Yeah.
there's like 100 people coming out on a chartered jet. They're
Oh,
flying out
really?
there, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be fun, but this is already
Yeah.
a long day for us. I
Yeah.
can't imagine.
Listen to the wonderful tunes of the Haunted Mansion Graveyard here.
Yes, that all the purists are having
So-
issues with.
So have you seen anything particularly interesting here at this park today?
Yeah, as far as I would say it's been more about attitude. That people seemed a lot more relaxed and friendly and just sort of like, I mean, I've got 24 hours. I don't have to
Right.
run around
That's
and
true. When-
kill myself and let my children scream. I haven't noticed, like normally you start hearing kids screaming
Right.
around 1 o'clock and thousands of them screaming and behaving badly. I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Just didn't get
So
that.
it's been a happier,
it's
happy
been a
day.
Really happy,
Yeah.
like
And it's
sort
funny
of like a
because
Christmas day
if you really think about it, this park regularly opens at 7 a.m. for extra magic hours. Fairly often stays open till 3 a.m. So you're really only getting an hour at the beginning and 3 hours at the end, and yet it's this whole just mindset of it being the full 24 hours all at once. It's an event, it's a happening, it's everybody come out together, and I think just that makes everybody more, excited.
nice and just nice to each other.
Yeah.
And I think because they left pretty much everything running.
Right.
You know how they shut down a lot of stuff.
Right.
And then there's no food. And they've done a much better job. And there was plenty of T-shirts and all that crap for people. So
Right.
nobody had to like get into
We're
it.
fighting over it and the usual mess. Yeah.
So I think it really.
That's good.
That's what I would say. I think is the
Yeah.
cast members seem really like super
Extra excited and friendly today.
Yeah. So
All right.
anyway,
I'm
I know
gonna,
you gotta get
yeah,
down the line,
I'm gonna
so.
find my way back to the front of the line because we're getting close.
Okay, all right.
So we have a group of 50. We have a group of 56 people. Is that too many? Okay, we'll just keep coming in. All right, go ahead, and I'll see if we can get everybody in. Go ahead. I'm looking for the end.
Okay, just let me know when it is.
Okay. Of course, we're mixing in with other people as well, so. Right. Do you have any idea where are you the end?
I might be the last one. I don't think I knew there was anyone.
Okay. All right, excellent then.
How many did you count?
Around 56-ish. Oh, okay. Smart. So
Can I ask no flash pictures, please?
how has your one more Disney day been?
You know what? It's just been a few Disney hours. I got here at like 11 p.m. because I knew I couldn't handle it.
It's a few extra Disney hours for you. For me too.
Just come in and pick up some Sorcerer's cards. The line was out.
Yeah, it's been since 6 a.m. It's been like that. Sorcerers is the thing to do today. Not tonight. What? So we're now standing in the stretching room at 2:50 in the morning. Not sure I've ever done that before.
I heard on Twitter that some guy fell down and cracked his head open on Frontierland.
Oh, that's no good.
Is this actually stretching? Or is it your
This chamber has one big door.
And consider this dismaying observation. This chamber has no window.
You mean it's not an elevator?
And no door.
There it goes.
We want a do-over! Take us back up! Take a picture of that. This elevator has no windows and no door.
There's nothing more frightening than glowing cell phone screens.
I would love to get pictures of that. There are no windows and there's no doors. There's big
Yeah. I must say, for 3 in the morning, this is quite the rowdy group. I'll sit in the middle so you can go first. What's that?
Do you still instinctively grab the bar?
No, I let him lower it for me. All right, let's squish. Squeeze in.
Okay, we're in. Yep.
I will lower it for you.
We're squishing
Warning. The spirits will materialize only if you remain quietly seated.
There we go. We're good. All right.
Hold on, I'm going to turn a little.
Okay.
There we go.
Perfect. All right, so it is now roughly 3 in the morning. We are on the Haunted Mansion, and you two have been here since 6 a.m. Is it nice to sit down even though we're horribly squished into a dune buggy?
It is. I've gone on a couple of the rides. Like, I went into Hall of Presidents and Carousel Progress to get some resting time.
Have you seen anybody sleeping around the park today?
Not in public.
People mover to get a little rest.
Well, yeah. We were just on it around 1 o'clock, and we stopped at Mickey Star Traders, and it actually went back like 10 feet.
Interesting.
It was weird. The lights came on, everything.
Yeah. Well, you know, got to have a few unique things to see throughout the day.
They have all retired.
Did you have any goals of what to ride, what not to ride, or are you just here for
We have 999 happy thoughts here.
Pirates,
For 1,000.
the new Space Mountain. I had to see the new improvements, and I'm very happy. The ride was unpredictable. I forgot the ride. I couldn't see where the drops were.
Yeah. It is definitely darker now, which is good because the cars don't glow in the dark and all that. What did you think of the music?
It's okay. I did like some of the swooshing sounds
Right.
as I was going around the bank turns. The sound weren't bad. I was mesmerized by the new graphics though on the rooftop. Light years better than it was before. And I even thought the interactive kit was fun. I had fun playing the game.
So did you have to wait in line for Space Mountain today?
45 minutes.
So you had time to stand there and play the games, and were a lot of other people playing them also?
Yeah, in fact, my group was the winner of groups that we could see.
Yeah, so that's good to hear because that was one of the first sort of interactive cube game sort of things that they put in, and that was quite a while ago, a few years ago. And I haven't really spent much time going through there since. I tend not to stand in lines, so I do wonder sometimes if they put these things in and then they just go unused.
I did miss the audio. Something about the audio has to go down the ramp. That old sound.
Right.
Yeah.
I kind of always like that.
Oh wait, they were asking about the candles earlier. I'm curious.
Off topic.
Yeah. I'm sure they've been through already.
Yeah. I just want to know now. 10.
Yep. So yeah. So you've both been here since 6. Are you planning on staying the next 3 hours?
I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
Yeah, my goal today was I thought about it. There's only 3 attractions. I had none ever. Flying carpets, Astro Orbiter, and the Teacups.
Everything's spinning.
And I haven't done them yet today either. But I'm gonna try and get to them still.
Waiting till the wee hours of the morning when you're nice and loopy and.
Yeah, I figure if Teacups are the last thing I do, and all I have to do is get back to my room and collapse, I'm good.
Yeah, that's probably a smart move. I'm not good at all on the spinning rides.
Me either.
Even when they were closing down Dumbo to move it over to Storybook Circus, I went on the last day it was open. I had not ridden Dumbo in a long time and figured I might as well give it a whirl.
Right.
And I went on it twice in a row, and I was more than enough. I was sufficiently dizzy after that.
Sure.
Teacups, I probably have not actually been on the Mad Tea Party in well over a decade. It's just not anything that I can deal with anymore. I definitely remember going as a kid and wanting, every kid wants to spin the thing and make your parents nauseous. And now it's the flip side,
Yep. I have a friend who said he'd go on with me and we would be in the non-spinning teacup. Now to find him, and he's had a couple of 5-hour energies, so who knows if he can keep up that promise.
Right.
So what do you think of the idea of knocking down It's a Small World and extending the graveyard into that building?
Well, they're working on something over there. There's certainly a big construction wall alongside the mansion here and running into Fantasyland. I'm, eager to find out what they're doing there. I don't think it's mansion related.
Probably new Fantasyland.
Yeah, well, there's talk of this interactive queue going into Peter Pan, where the restrooms are now, and thus needing to move the restrooms over there. But that's a fairly large area. It would have more than just restrooms, I would imagine. But who knows? They may just be building a little river or some rock work or maybe a new pathway. We'll have to wait and see what goes in there.
Our head effects look much better in Disneyland.
These look fantastic. Yeah, they did an amazing job aligning and just really bringing out the details in those singing buses.
It was neat though that they have Prince Eric's castle.
Yeah,
you can see the top
that they're building
now.
for the Little Mermaid. Yeah, it seems that they've topped it off. It's coming along very nicely. All right, so let's play Hitchhiking Ghost Roulette. Who are we going to get?
I have no idea because I've never procedure?
I think we're gonna get that one has the lantern, which I don't get too often, but
This is all new for me.
All right, so let's see what we get in the interactive, well, not interactive, but animated Hitchhiking Ghost here.
They have those new dolls that bring it to
Yeah, they're upgraded.
Oh, no?
We
How's
have
he gonna do this?
Ezra sitting on top of the Doom buggy. Oh! I have not seen that one before.
No, I've not seen it.
All of our heads became Hitchhiking Ghost heads. That was a good one.
That's really close. And allows them to change it at will.
Yeah.
More and more.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody gets an idea.
The funniest thing about those that the one out of all of the different animations I've seen, the one that I thought when I first saw it was lame was one where they blow up your head like a balloon and then it bursts and these little birds fly away. Until I found out that the little birds are actually the bat stanchions that are in the queue on the way in. They're little flying bats. You can barely even tell, but knowing that makes it more fun. They are, you're right.
There's an exception.
Well, thanks for squishing into a Doom buggy with me. We survived. And there you have it, a bit of a sampling of what it sounded like to be at our Inside the Magic meetup for One More Disney Day. It was a whole lot of fun. Thanks very much to everybody who came out to the meet, and hopefully everybody had as good of a time as I did, and thanks for those who stuck around afterwards as well. We walked around the Magic Kingdom for another 3 hours or so and rode rides, etc., etc. I actually do have some more fun audio that I recorded that night that I should share in the coming weeks at some point for another ride through in the Magic Kingdom, but that'll have to wait for another time because that's about all I'm going to say for One More Disney Day for this week. It was certainly a fun, unique, and exciting experience at the Magic Kingdom out here in Florida. A lot more commotion and craziness out at Disneyland, but as you heard from the reports that were submitted in, it was also an enjoyable experience out there as well. Certainly something that I would like to see Disney do more often, not necessarily 24 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. kind of thing, but some late night hours would be great. I am up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning on a regular basis just because those are the hours that I tend to keep, and I would love to be able to be sitting here at home at 1 in the morning and say, hey, you know what? I'm bored. I'm going to the Magic Kingdom. It's not something that you can do, every single night. Sure, there's extra magic hours, that kind of thing occasionally, but having sort of it wouldn't be the same as the atmosphere, the excitement that was in the air, the extra magic that was in the air during this One More Disney Day is really what brought it all together and made it an extra special day. So if they do it again, I definitely encourage everybody to give it a shot for One More Disney Day.
Tomorrow.
And that's where we're going to wrap up show 361, skipping listener feedback once again this week because we are at a very long show already. I do have quite a lot of emails to reply to, and I will try to work those in on next week's show. But that'll do it for now for One More Disney Day and the Disney Fantasy Christening and all the other exciting news from the week. Certainly a lot coming up. You know what? There's always a lot coming up, but particularly this month, I'm looking forward to hopping aboard the Disney Fantasy in a few weeks and just kind of watching and seeing what happens over the next few weeks in the meantime. But anyway, I do want to thank Magical Travel, as always, for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com and visit us over at lanyardlab.com to see all the different styles and custom lanyard options that we have available. You can request a price quote today to receive a free digital preview of your lanyard design. And of course, between episodes of this podcast, be sure to visit InsideTheMagic.net. It is your source for Disney and theme park news. Not only will you find each week's show notes, links, background music listings, etc., but you'll find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and much more. If you want to see more about One More Disney Day, lots and lots of photos that I took, including those really dense, foggy morning photos. Visit the website for all of that. And of course, follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. You'll find all those links on the website as well. So thanks very much for all of you, or to all of you, for listening and for watching each and every week. And I'll see you next week. And have a magical week. Bye.
Big, beautiful tomorrow, and tomorrow's just